I'm telling you that this is the touch-up screen and on maximum.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Okay, now put it off. Let me see
Yes.
the difference.
And then we are already live. See?
No, not yet. Oh, we are?
Okay, now it's turned off. Okay.
Oh yeah, we live. All right, all right. Okay, I'm sorry, I clicked accidentally. We live.
Okay, okay.
Hey, we live.
It is already online?
What happened, Beena?
Oh.
Yes, I've said it 3 times.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Hope you are doing well.
Yes, good morning, Beena. Good morning. A little sleepy, but other than that, I'm well. Yes,
other than that, we are good. Yes, it was not sleepy. It was just like a energy saving energy mood. We were both were on.
Yeah,
like, okay,
but I feel a bit sleepy. So I didn't.
Okay. Anyway, so while Syl is sharing things, thought of the day. We were just chilling a bit and having this snooze mood, and I was thinking about so many things in life. When things happened abruptly, mostly it is associated with chaos.
When things happen abruptly, it's associated with chaos.
Yes, things happens abruptly in your life, and we have an association with chaos, which is kind of like a negative association we have in our mind. So we don't want that. Things happen abruptly according to us, which is something like we were not expecting it. Maybe we were not ready. Maybe because we were not expecting it to happen in a particular way, the way things happened. We cannot remedy this. Of course, things are going to happen on their own accord, and we cannot predict 100% how things in life is going to be. I still always say that, and I love this quote that, okay, the world doesn't work the way we assume it does. So what is the remedy for that? We cannot avoid things. The remedy is to live your life with self-honesty and honesty in general. When we say that, like, oh, I want this in my life, I want to do this in my life, I want to have this in my life, we need to be fully prepared for that. We don't actually prepare ourselves for things we just wish for and kind of like ask for. Oh, I would love to do this. But are we really prepared for that? Yes. And the preparation doesn't mean that, okay, oh, yes, everyday practice. But to live like that, we have to be very careful about setting our intents to have something in our life and asking for and making wishes and desires, because ultimately they are also intents. And when we communicate with the universe saying that, oh, I would love to, with whom we are saying? Oh, of course, we are saying it to the universe. Oh, I would love to have this. Oh, I really, really need this. But when things happen, I will say, oh, not this time, not in this way. Oh, I was not expecting it. Then now it's a chaos. Chaos is something always a consequence of our choices we have made in our past. Our present is a consequence of our choices we have made in our past. And this is what creates chaos when we are not fully honest. We're not self-honest, and we are not honest in general. And this is what I was thinking about, that every chaos, if we look at it closely, yes, I personally, I don't want to accept that, oh, I was not prepared. It doesn't feel nice, it doesn't seem good, feels good, but for me, reality is that I was not prepared. That's why it's a chaos.
Exactly.
Maybe I was just trying to control, like really minutely control everything, micromanaging things, never leaving a room for the mourners to come in.
Wow. Most insightful, Beena. Most insightful.
So this is something I was just thinking that, okay, yes, right now we both are just chilling and doing nothing. But if something suddenly happened, like, okay, if someone would call us and say that, okay, oh, let's do this show, or okay, let's do the live just right now, or still you have a counseling call, emergency, someone is just in need.
Yeah.
Are we ready? And I said, oh yes.
Yeah. Almost.
Oh yes, we are
Almost.
ready.
It's just
And
posting to the page.
this is
Yeah.
important because we are not faking things up. We are living like this. When we fake things,
Yeah.
then we are not ready. And this is more than thought of the day. And I think that we are all set for start reading right now.
Yes, yes. It's just taking a long time to post to the group to the page for whatever reason. But that can just be going. I don't need that specifically.
Okay. So we are doing for new for anyone new who is going to join us. We are going to do the capital R reading of Don Juan's books by Carlos Castaneda, and we are doing this.
Well, hang on.
Again.
When you say Don Juan's books, just clarify. They're not his books. They're books about him.
Yes, these are Carlos books,
but not by
about Don Juan's. Yes, but I personally feel that, okay, this is something I'm very keen. That's why I always say that, okay, I am here to connect and interact with Don Juan, or Don Juan, or Don Juan, or Don Juan.
Yes.
You know, in whichever way you like to call him. But for us, he's Don. And this is what we are doing. This capital R reading is very special because we are doing this with the complete clarity of intent that we are going to connect with Don Juan, not just trying to read this books of Carlos, but connecting with Don Juan. And it's a big deal because I personally strongly believe in that we all are energy, and energy never dies. So in somewhere, in some dimension, in somewhere, Don Juan is still existing there, and we just want to connect with him. This is what our capital A appreciation for him. This is what our due respect for him. To not just reading someone's writing about him, but try to connect with him. What was his intent? What he was sharing, and what he wants to share with the world. Yes. And this is what we are
looking at not just Don Juan to understand him personally, but to understand his particular, specific, focused subculture, right? Like Beena and I are sharing a subculture, which comes from Nobelia, comes from the whole book series, right? The Biela series, which is Moreness-Culture, right? And this is something that's particular to us. And many things that Don Juan share are particular to him and his lineage, which he learned from his benefactor learned from his benefactor, and so on, a lineage going back centuries, right? And this is particular to that lineage. It's a very particular subculture. And that also is that we are looking to understand. Not just the individual Don Juan, right? We are going to get a glimpse of that lineage subculture via Don Gennaro. Yes, Don Gennaro, but I call him Don Gennaro. It's just my nickname for him, right? Because that's how I came to know him. So anyway, so when others come into it, the others in the party later on, more of them come like Florinda, but mostly the one that we get to interact with the most is Don Gennaro. And as such, we get to see they're very different personality-wise, very different, right? But we still get to connect to the underlying similarities, and that's very important, to see that the greater subculture, right? And that's something that's very unique and very special, right? And it's not coming from any particular source. Like Carlos mistakes it. He says the Yaqui way of knowledge. No, it's not that, right? Well, for one thing, Don Gennaro is not Yaqui. So it doesn't apply, right? And others aren't even Western. May even be some from the Orient too. All right, let's continue. Last we were there where Carlos had taken devil's weed, ingested it, he rubbed it on his legs, and the effect was that he flew. Yes? But where was my body, Don Juan? He asked so stupidly. Right? In the bushes, he replied cuttingly, but immediately broke into laughter again. The trouble with you is that you understand things in only one way. Why it is so crucially important to develop perspective shifting to multiple perspectives. It is key and fundamental to way of impeccability. Way of impeccability, again, is part of the specific subculture that Beena and I are sharing. Yes, it's not a subculture that's exclusive. It's inclusive. It's open. Yeah, Don Juan's wasn't open to everybody, right? But ours is. Right? You don't think a man flies, and yet a brewer can move 1,000 miles in 1 second to see what's going on. He can deliver a blow to his enemies long distances away. So, does he or doesn't he fly? You see, Don Juan, you and I are differently oriented. Suppose, for the sake of argument, one of my fellow students had been here with me when I took the devil's weed. Would he have been able to see me flying? There you go again with your questions about what would happen if. It is useless to talk that way. If your friend or anybody else takes the second portion of the weed, all he can do is fly. Now, if he had simply watched you, he might have seen you flying or might not. That depends on the man. But what I mean, Don Juan, is that if you look and I look at the bird and see it fly, we agree that it is flying. But if two of my friends had seen me flying as I did last night, would they have agreed that I was flying? It's so important to Carlos that he does not get into this idea or belief that he doesn't want to fall into being delusional. Being delusional is an absolute no-no for Carlos, right? This is just not on, right? This is not cool, not happening, and he's horrified that this might be so. And this is what's underlying these questions, right? This fear of being delusional or crazy, but delusional more than crazy, right? The focus specifically. It's a self-importance and superiority paradigm. And then Don Juan continues. He says, well, they might have. You agree that birds fly because you have seen them flying. Flying is a common thing with birds. But you will not agree on other things birds do because you have never seen birds doing them. If your friends knew about men flying with a devil's weed, then they would agree. Let's put it another way, Don Juan. What I mean to say is that if I tied myself to a rock with a heavy chain, I would have flown just the same because my body had nothing to do with my flying. Don Juan looked at me incredulously. If you tie yourself to a rock, I'm afraid you'll have to fly holding the rock with its heavy chain. Yeah, seriously, Carlos, come on. Just get a clue, dude. Just get a clue, man. Just get a clue. All right, chapter 7. Yeah, the madness of Carlos, right? The inability to understand and comprehend that there are other paradigms. Yes, Beena, any comments?
Yes. Yes, I want to read that. So, chapter 7. We have been reading. So, I said, okay, I'm going to read.
Good, then I'll nap while you read.
Okay. Chapter 7. Collecting the ingredients and preparing them for the smoke mixture from the yearly cycle. The first year, Don Juan taught me the procedure. In December 1962, the second year when the cycle was renewed, Don Juan merely directed me. I collected the ingredients myself, prepared them, and put them away until the next year. In December 1963, a new cycle started for the third time. Don Juan then showed me how to combine the dried ingredients I had collected and prepared the year before. We put the smoking mixture into a small leather bag, and we set out once again to collect the different components for the following year. Don Juan seldom mentioned the little smoke during the year that elapsed between the two gatherings. Every time I went to see him, however, he gave me his pipe to hold, and the procedure of getting familiar with the pipe developed in the way he had described. He put the pipe in my hands very gradually. He demanded absolute and careful concentration on that action and gave me very explicit directions. Any fumbling with the pipe would inevitably result in his or my death, he said.
Oh,
wow.
wow. See now here we see again that reverence. Not only the reverence, but also this is more about intent and making sure that the intent is appropriate, right? And not just appropriate, but absolutely you're going to the extreme that you could possibly do to reduce the chances of the unforeseen to a minimum, right? That comes into a story later on, where Don Juan says that, right? It's a very good way of saying it.
Is it
This
is also a queuing cell?
Yes, it is a queuing to say this is serious. Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Like you cannot, you cannot just fool around with these things. You cannot just play with these type of things.
Correct. So the queuing is multifold. It is to cue Carlos to really say this is serious stuff. More so to cue his intent to say this is serious. By it being serious, it also becomes important and valuable, right? So he is leveraging the intent in many ways. Yeah, it's and also it is cueing intent itself, right? If you go about something with that degree of precision and care and sobriety and respect, you are cueing intent to say, this is very important to me, right? So you're leveraging your own intent. Yeah, you're leveraging
so like queuing to be deliberate
itself, right? But you're cueing intent itself, not only your own intent, but intent itself to come to you, right? It's like beckoning or calling intent, right? Through all that deliberateness. Exactly. Deliberateness is power. You know, I never said that before. Let me add that in as a fine quote. Yes.
Yes, it is. Okay, so
because that's what it is, really. Yeah, deliberateness is power. Yeah. Let me just put this quote in here. If you don't do it right away, it never happens.
No, while you are doing this, I'm continuing reading. So as soon
but you
as
won't be able to see it.
I can.
How are you seeing it? Oh, you got it on your side?
No.
Wow. Okay.
Because you're sharing the screen now. Only that particular screen.
Oh, yes. So I can happily type and you can continue reading. Wow, I just learned something. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. Brilliant.
As soon as we had finished the third collecting and preparing cycle, Don Juan began to talk about the smoke as an ally for the first time in more than a year. Monday, 23rd December 1963, we were driving back to his house after collecting some yellow flowers for the mixture. They were one of the necessary ingredients. I made the remark that this year we did not follow the same order in collecting the ingredients as we had the year before. He laughed and said the smoke was not moody or petty as the devil's weed was. For the smoke, the order of collecting was unimportant. All that was required was that the man using the mixture had to be accurate and exact. I asked Don Juan what we were going to do with the mixture he had prepared and given me to keep. He replied that it was mine and added that I had to use it as soon as possible. I asked how much of it was needed each time. The small bag he had given me contained approximately 3 times the amount of the small tobacco bag. A small tobacco bag would hold. He told me I would have to use all the contents of my bag in 1 year and how much I needed each. Now we need to scroll, Syl. Okay, so while Syl is there, again, so much preciseness, so much details are just I feel that it's a protocol to make your intent very clear, because when you make deliberate choice, how can you not be clear about your intent? So the clarity of intent is based on with deliberateness. And when you are making every single step deliberately, how can you not have clarity? So this whole protocol of doing things in a specific, exact, precise way is to be very careful about the protocol you are following, because you are making choices. And of course, as Syl mentioned, that to connect with the intent itself.
Correct. To leverage and connect with intent. Yes. Yes. And to say intent, hey, I'm really serious, because that amplifies your intent. Real quick, on
You're very
a
soft.
related note here.
Okay,
Yeah,
now.
sorry. There we go. Yeah, because the microphone was off here. I forgot to put it back on again. The reason that I have been making an effort to de-emphasize the hallucinogens is because they give a inaccurate perception of Don Juan's world. Later, we're going to see that come across, but because Carlos misunderstands it, and Don Juan needs to do it for the reasons of collapsing Carlos's worldview, because Carlos is so stuck in it, we get this disproportionate emphasis on the hallucinogens, right? And it's not something that is in the realm of self-help. When you read this as a self-help book, and we're all about self-help and doing it ourselves without needing such things, right? And we also understand there's a cost involved. So we have a greater overview perspective. But also, the reason I want to de-emphasize it, because I do, and I continually emphasize this, I don't want to convey to anybody watching that this is a focus and things that we are into and all this. Not because I'm anti it or against it, no, not at all, but simply it's not on our path, right? And as a result, I don't want to create this misunderstanding. And just to illustrate, in one of the from group, right? The group that we're posting this in and sharing this in, right? A SASSY group, self-awareness, self-improvement, self-discovery discussion group, to the full name of it. There are chats that are related to it. They're not particularly active. They were in the beginning, but they faded now. But anyway, yesterday somebody posted twice. Oh, I've got hallucinogens available if anybody wants a whole long thing, right? You know, ad scam stuff. But that means somebody was picking up on this, yes, and saying, oh, all right, yeah, now they're trying to sell the stuff, right? And that's another reason I want to make sure that this is not something that we're communicating that is a focus for us. We're reading it because it's in the book, but I'm keen to get past this in the first book, because it's not really what is of value. Yes, the character teachings, the skills, those are what are of value. The understanding, the way of looking at the world, the different perspectives, the cosmology of it, that is valuable. That's what we're after, right? Important. All right, where were you needed each time I spoke to personal matter? Yeah, right. That's where you were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a bit more. So scroll down, like, so I can see a bit more. Yes. To back. Yes. Yeah. I needed each time I smoked was a personal matter. I wanted to know what would happen if I ever finished the bag. Don Juan said
If I never.
that nothing.
If I never.
Oh, sorry. If I never finished the bag. Don Juan said that nothing would happen. The smoke did not require anything. He himself did not need to smoke anymore. And yet he made a new mixture each year. He then corrected himself and said that he really had to smoke. I asked what he did with the unused mixture, but he did not answer. He said the mixture was no longer good if not used in 1 year. At this point,
Right.
we got...
So, sorry to interrupt you, Beena. Let's go up a little bit here, yes? And this is something we need to understand with Don Juan, right? Just yeah, just we have to understand Don Juan's expression, or at least Carlos's hearing of what Don Juan says. Now, did Don Juan actually say that, or did Don just assume that he said it, right? And if we understand already, we know Carlos's psychology, and we know that he's in a bit of his own bubble, and he's got a lot of self-importance issues and all that. So part of that psychology, just in general, right, as an observer and student all my life of psychology, almost always that psychology does not really hear what people say exactly. Yeah, they presuppose, they assume, oh, they must have said this, right? They take what's being said and they squeeze it into their worldview. All right, because we're going to see this quite a few times, and it stood out for me. It was very noticeable, right? Because then other things that mattered. Don Juan, he told me I would have to use all the contents of my bag in 1 year. All right, that's a very specific instruction. The way Carlos understands this is that I have to smoke it all in the year. It's not what Don Juan means, right? He just means that whatever you've made, that if you don't use it after a year, it's no good, right? But Carlos misunderstands. So we come to see a very specific definitive rule. I would have to use all the contents of my bag in 1 year, right? But that's not accurately conveyed. It's misleading, because a little while later, Don Juan says, no, you don't have to smoke it all. You just have to not use it after a year, right? Different meaning. But this, where Don Juan says something that seems like a very definitive, clear rule, and then later on he cancels it, which means other times when he says these very definitive rules, we need to take into cognizance that perhaps it is either Don Juan's way of expressing things or Carlos's not hearing it accurately, right? Because Carlos is writing this down, well, in Spanish, because even Don Juan are talking in Spanish. Now, I don't know if he kept his notes in Spanish or in English. I think he kept his notes in English. So he's translating on the fly. But it's just important to be aware that don't take Don Juan's absolute rules as being absolute. They're not necessarily so, right? Because of just communication issues. Make sense?
But isn't it contradictory with the preciseness and exactness of things?
It is, but it's not Don Juan who's not necessarily precise. It's Carlos. See? It's how Carlos is hearing what's being said. He's writing what he thought he heard, but it's not necessarily what he did hear. And because their worldviews are so completely, radically different, he gets a lot of things wrong, Carlos, right? And as a result, we need to have this, make allowance for Carlos's translation. Not just translation from Spanish to English, that I don't have an issue with, but his translation from Don Juan paradigm to Carlos paradigm. Very different. Yeah? I mean,
Yes.
look at when people come and they see us doing the show. Oh, they just assume, well, they're trying to get likes and they're trying to build up a following and, trying to get presence on YouTube, whatever. They just assume we do it according to the typical superiority paradigm reasons, right? We're doing it to look clever. We're doing it to promote ourselves and have fame. And none of that applies. So that's the problem, right? That when you're coming from a paradigm, what is obvious to you in that paradigm, well, it's like, isn't that what everybody does? No, it's not. But you cannot imagine that anybody could do things from an alternative paradigm. So you don't even think of that.
Okay. It is going to be a completely different topic, but at some point, I just want you to elucidate a bit, because
on what?
Okay, let me explain this whole thing. To elucidate a point that because we have this understanding, not necessarily right or precise, but we have this understanding that human mind learn by comparing things. Like we have this drastic thing like day and night, and then black and white. And then, of course, we compare a bit more and get more and more sophisticated. But still, we have this thing. It is not completely like, okay, even when we have like unlimited areas of variation in things, but still we do compare.
Right.
On a more sophisticated level, but this is still compare. But when something is coming completely out of your regular understanding, then you don't have anything to compare with. And when you cannot compare, then of course we assume.
Right. Now, this is a very great point. So what's the remedy
for that? At some point, I want you to just go over in detail.
Now is the time. No, now is the right time for this, right?
Okay.
So why do we think? Why do we believe and assume that learning is via comparison, because comparison is the heart and base of the superiority paradigm. That's what it's all about. It is about hierarchy, and always it's about your position in the hierarchy. And how do you determine that? By comparing yourself to the higher and lower, right? So everything comes from comparing. That's the most important thing. So this most important comparison mindset that you applying, this constant comparing, it leaks over into everything else, because that's the most important thing in your existence, comparing. So everything gets now put into this basket of comparing, right?
What else if not comparing?
Right. So now what do we do in Moreness culture? We look for value and usefulness. You'll see me in my writings. I capitalize value and usefulness. They're in my dictionary of power. Why? Because of this. I'm not looking at something in terms of how does it compare to others? How does it make me look to others? Am I going to be doing this thing better than somebody else? Oh, all I'm interested in is, does this give me value and usefulness? That's it. Doesn't matter. The comparison is totally irrelevant. Okay. And that's how we learn. Yes?
No, I was not saying comparison in this limited form, but comparison like, okay, to understand new things in life. When something is coming completely out of your awareness, or very, very limited, like some idea, some random idea you have, but nothing in detail you have, no specifics, nothing. When something is happening or coming to you, which is out of your awareness, almost.
Now,
then how you are going to understand that?
You determine it via value. That's how you understand it. First of all, we understand appropriateness. And appropriateness, right? We use the same mechanism, not necessarily to determine if the thing is appropriate or not, but appropriateness is determined by understanding context and goal or motivation. Yes, intent. When you put those two together, now when you come to something like, for instance, the flying of Carlos, right? This is completely anomalous. It's out of his experience. Let's say we may be involved in this and we viewing it, or just even us reading it. How do we evaluate it? We evaluate it within its own context. Yes? That's how we learn things that are outside of our experience, by evaluating them within their own context. Right? And then we say, well, within this context, if this, if that, and we understand how bubbles work. And secondly, we say, well, what is my intent here into the understanding? In order to understand outside, I have to learn the context before I can actually apply the context to the specific action. Yeah. So okay. we have to go quite a long way sometimes to learn new things, because we have to learn a whole new reality, a whole new paradigm sometimes.
Just one more question, because to understand anomaly, like this, in this case, as you use this example of Don Juan's flying, like, okay, to understand it as an anomaly, we need to have some data in our mind with which we are going to compare that humans don't fly, at least not on their own accord.
Correct.
We use some leverage, and then of course
right.
So we are using the comparison. Yes.
We have to be absolutely critically and fundamentally and hyper aware of assumption. How do I know humans don't fly? In my experience, they don't. Yes. But my experience of the world is very limited. That's where we need to now. If we want to understand alternative paradigms, first step is to be hyper aware that we are relating according to our experience, which includes our paradigm, our context, and it's exceedingly limited. This is why I keep repeating, the world that does not work the way we think it does.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Yeah, then we can let go of assumptions.
Yeah. Yes. Now I understand. Yes. Thank you. Now it all makes sense, because in the first step, because I was like, okay, why, how we are going to actually understand that it is anomaly or it is different. That because by comparing with other things, like normally this doesn't happen. Usually this is not the case.
Yeah.
So that's why it is
To
different.
us,
Why it is different.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. In our world, it doesn't, right? Now,
Yes.
you know, Beena, you live in a subculture. You know, your family environment, your extended community. It is a very different community to most, right? And it's very subtle.
Yes.
Most people won't even notice the difference. But if you pay attention, you'll see it's a vast, radically big difference, right? And of course,
Yes.
they assume it's the same as theirs because that's the problem. Most people assume the world is according to their experience. It's a terrible assumption. So when you know this, it's very different, right? And when we say this, when we start looking at things and say, wow, this is just my bubble, but there are other bubbles. And then we start to look, yes? And it's not so much comparing as it is additive. If I'm perceiving things from multiple perspectives, I don't compare one perspective to the other. I add them. If I want to understand the layout of that house, this mythical house that's get viewed so often through the windows, one view doesn't let me construct the layout of the house, right? Even two or three. I don't have to look through each and every window, but at some point I've got enough data to construct the whole. And that's the key with new things that we don't know. Keep looking, and allow your brain to put together the whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. Yeah? So
Yes.
I look in through 6 or 10 windows, and there are 20 windows in the house. I've got enough data which I can now extract it. Your brain says, okay, you've got this angle, you've got this angle, and you know this has to be that way because, well, otherwise there'll be a vacuum there. And see, there's a logic there and reason that can complete things. Our brain is fantastic at putting things together like that. That's how we learn language, for instance, right? Many things.
Yes.
But the key to new realities, alternative paradigms, and understanding them is to garner and gather and collect multiple perspectives. That's the key.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it, Beena.
Thank
What a
you.
wonderful,
Thank you so
wonderful,
much. Thank you so much. Because this is so crucial to understand that how to actually step into the Moreness culture, Moreness paradigm.
Yes,
In this
exactly.
case, this is the very basic step. And mostly in learning and growing, what happens that you can have all the profound ideas, very sophisticated, but you miss that one subtle, very basic, very minute detail about like how just to hold the spoon to put your food into your mouth. That's the thing. After that, you can take care of things. So we need that. So that is so profound. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, pleasure. Now, by the way, to just to comment on this, right? What happened here? Zoom out a little bit. Take note if somebody's watching this at the power of earnestness. Beena asked me an earnest question. It is something that is part of our relationship. I ask her honest questions, she asks me earnest questions. We are very earnest in our learning. We are very earnest in our learning and growing. We are very earnest in enhancing and developing our awareness. We love learning. It is a great joy to us, but we're also very earnest about it, right? And that earnestness, it's a power. Beena's earnestness leveraged me. Yes, and it's something that, you know, I hadn't specifically thought of, but it comes, right? And it's right there, because that earnestness pulls it out of me in the specific form, and that's appropriate for the circumstance. It's a very magical thing. It's a very, very magical thing, right? So pay attention to earnestness. Exceedingly powerful.
Please scroll a bit.
Again. Really? I thought did you read this with a long argument?
Yes.
Oh,
because,
right. Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Tuesday, 24 December 1963. You said, Don Juan, you don't have to smoke anymore. Don Juan?
Oh, let me just finish something here. You read a little bit. Sorry. I'm listening.
Yes,
I'm listening, but I'm just doing something.
Okay. Yes, because the smoke is my ally. I don't need to smoke anymore. I can call him anytime, in any place. Do you mean he comes to you even if you do not smoke? I mean, I go to him freely. Will I be able to do that too? If you succeeded in getting him as your ally, you will.
Oh, well. Now again, right here, we start to see something else, completely different. Yes, a different paradigm in action. That Carlos is a bit dumbfounded by this, a bit astounded. Like, wow, really? You know, you won't have to smoke, because in his mind, the hallucinogenic effect comes from the thing itself. That's his paradigm. But that's not so. The smoke and the paste and all that, those are means to an end, right? And the end here is making the thing your ally. When you've made the thing your ally, like in this case, the smoke, you don't need the specific path that connects you in the first place, right? You have
Yes.
that already. And it's a very, in other words, this thing is the ally, the smoke is bigger than the mixture. But Carlos doesn't get
Yes.
this. Yeah. In the
Yes.
same way as the datura plant, right? She that Don Juan talks about, and the he. It's an entity that's greater than any individual plant. It's greater than the actual chemical qualities in the plant. Those are just a tool for you to connect to the greater entity. Once you're there and you've made them your ally, you don't need all that other stuff anymore. Now, Don Juan has other ways of connecting to the moreness, the value, as we'll see later. Right? It's very cool stuff here. Very cool
This
stuff.
is this
I
is
just want
this
to
is very
point this out.
interesting, because as you
Yeah.
were saying before that, I feel that to limit Don Juan's understanding and his sharing, it limited or specific to the hallucinogenic. I don't know what is the pronunciation for that.
Hallucinogenic.
Hallucinogenic. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is actually kind of like not giving him due respect, because he
Not
is
at all.
connecting with the
Right.
energy. He is connecting with the
Correct.
energy, with the entity, but not the medium.
Exactly.
This
And
is
not
so
just the
profound.
energy, but the intent.
Exactly. And
He's
also,
yeah, not just the intent, but he's interacting with an entity.
that,
Yeah.
yes. And also that he is actually explaining what sharing actually is, because we assume that by sharing, some people assume that, oh, I have to share, which means that I have to give. This is the idea we have, but actually not. Sharing is 50% receiving. And what Don
Yeah.
Juan is doing right now, what he is actually sharing with Carlos, that it is not, at some point, it is not like I'm going towards the smoke. No, that the smoke will come to me also, or maybe I will go there. Now it's a sharing thing, it's a shared thing, it's a mutual thing. Once you become an ally, what actually means of ally? To have mutual things. And this is what mutual is. Wonderful.
It's very important. Also, I just something that came to me right now that's very key in way of impeccability, and thus in Moreness-Culture, right? A Nobelia-Culture, which is another word for Moreness-Culture, right? Now, Moreness-Culture, and there is a slight difference between Moreness-Culture and Nobelia-Culture. Nobelia-Culture has Moreness-Culture, but takes it, just adds one extra component, and that is the focus and practice on nobleness, being noble,
Yes.
which is an optional thing. That's based on your predilection as an individual, right? It's not
Yes.
necessarily, and it's not necessary to Moreness-Culture, and not at all. So Moreness-Culture can be without the focus on nobleness, but for the new nobility, it would be unthinkable to just focus on nobleness without Moreness-Culture and way of impeccability, right? So it's all part of the same bigger picture. This is just a side bubble, a focus, a specialization, as it were. At any rate, in Moreness-Culture, what were you saying? What was your point about? You said I lost my
About
point now.
sharing. About sharing.
Right. Capital T trust. Right. Sorry. So when we look at Carlos and him asking these questions, sorry, I'm jumping. It's not actually related to what you're saying. It just came to me. And asking these very detailed, specific questions. There was a time in my life when I asked similar questions about things that I wanted to know, right? Like whenever somebody came to our house when I was a boy, and electrician or plumber or whatever, it doesn't matter, whatever they were, right? I would always ask as many questions as I possibly could. I wanted to learn everything about what they were doing, right? Now, when it comes to very precise, specific, practical things, that's very valuable. But on things of a bit more abstract nature, those questions can become very counterproductive, because as we see with Carlos, they keep him locked in his paradigm. And to answer your question, Beena, see, this what's come up in me now is a bit of a delayed response to the earnestness of your question. You wanted to know, how do we learn alternate paradigm, right? Something that's completely outside of our experience. That's what you wanted to know, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Capital T, trust that we will. That is one of the tools that we'll employ. The other tool that we're employing is to gather multiple perspectives. And of course, thinking things through to the end, right? But it's perspective shifting to multiple perspectives. But then you take those two. And at first, you have no clue what's going on. You have no clue what's going on. But you have to have capital T trust that you've been impeccable. Of course, if you have capital T trust, you've been impeccable. That's why you can trust. Because you can't trust if you haven't done what you can do. So you do everything you can do. You're still confused. You still have no clue. Trust that it will make sense at some point. Trust that you are going to put together the understanding of that floor plan. It will come to you. Oh, I see how it works now. You'll have that revelation, that click where all the elements fall into place. But that takes patience and discipline and forbearance, and the timing takes care of itself. This is a foreshadowing quote from Future to Come. Yes, but that's what's necessary. Patience, discipline, and forbearance, because it could get really difficult. You're in this alien reality that it's a constant muddle. You have no clue what's going on. It can be very stressful. But if you persist and you keep going and you trust, that's the key in that those 4 elements that Don Juan says. It's actually 6, but capital T trust is missing. It is absolutely essential. Capital T trust, not regular trust, because capital T trust is founded on impeccability first. Capital T trust is what you do when you have already applied your impeccability to its utmost, and there's no more you can do. Then the last thing is to trust. Yes.
Yes.
And then
Amazing.
it will come. You have to trust that the learning, the awareness will come. Yeah, that is very cool. Yes, I agree, Beena. It's very helpful in this context and makes a big difference.
Yes, it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for sharing. And okay, now we are reaching the time, so we are going to wrap it up. And we'll be here again tomorrow at the same time. And for those who are going to watch us recorded, please do click like and subscribe to this tiny channel, because by doing so, you are going to train your online algorithm that this tiny channel is providing me some value and some goodness which I want in my life. And to have it more in your life, not limited to us only, but do whatever you like and you find valuable online. Please do click like and subscribe. And please, if you have something, make a connection to the goodness and the value, not to us, of course. Make a connection with the goodness by leaving a comment or ask a question if you have some, because we consider questions as the love notes from the universe, and we are very keen to receive love notes from the universe. And this is so profound and valuable for us. And
we
also
did.
Okay.
We did receive something. Before we wrap it up here, I was going to say hello to Lubna and Duskatari, and also Norma. We're talking about how we learn something that is completely alien and unknown to us.
Yes.
And Norma adds something very powerful here. Hello, Norma. First of all, love that you're here. Wonderful. That you're here with us live. Norma says, and tool of imagination. Yes. Now that's part of perspective shifting, is imagination, right? When you look at something from every possible angle, it's not just the literal angles, it's also virtual angles, which means imagination. But it's a great addition, because I didn't specify and I didn't mention imagination specifically, because it's part of perspective shifting to multiple perspectives, right? I mean, to me, it's automatic, but yes, very powerful point that Norma makes. And she goes on to say, no teachers, no books, no views, without imagining the possibilities. So in other words, you can do this without teachers and books and views, by imagining. imagining the possibilities precisely. Right?
Yes, yes.
And anything is possible.
Wonderful.
So it's very powerful. Wonderful, wonderful
Yes, thank
addition
you.
to this point
Thank you,
of
Norma. Thank you,
learning
Norma, really, for sharing.
alternative. Yeah,
Exactly.
fantastic.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Yes.
Thank you so much, Syl.
Very
Thank you
powerful.
so much for
Wonderful.
joining us, Norma. And please, again, I would emphasize on that, because by training your online algorithm, you are going to train your life algorithm, because they are ultimately connected. Because online life is no more just part of your life; it is your life. So please do pay attention what you are feeding and what is coming in your news feed, and just keep an eye on it, and you will receive more and more goodness in your life.
Right. Now think of this training your algorithm. We know about it from the internet, from Google and Facebook and so on, right? And any social media, they all use the same system. Yeah. So we know about this, but the same mechanism works in life. Now let's apply that to Beena's question. Yeah. If we take the abstract tools of learning, which applies in general, I come across some new, I don't know, a new social media site that's a bit confusing, or whatever it may be that I need to learn. Yes. At first, it's unknown, it's foreign, it's different.
Yes.
And I use a multiple perspective shift. I use my imagination. I explore. I do trial and error. There's multiple things that we can do to learn. That's learning tools in general, right? But let's specifically say we actually focus on this fact that I don't know what's going on at all, but I'm just going to keep going and it'll all fall into place. I practice this in little small things that are, well, I know from past experience, okay, to figure out the new social media site, it's not that hard. I can go and Google and research and all that. But let's say I don't go and Google and research. I figure it out on my own, just for the practice. The more I do this, the more I train my brain to be comfortable with that figuring out process, with being in the dark, with being a bit lost, right? And with doing everything I can do and trusting that it will come. And then it does. So when I get into a big issue, like a completely alternate reality, like Carlos, now I've trained and practiced. And I can take those individual instances and rely on them and say, oh, I did this before, and I've done it many times in smaller things. It's going to be the same, just a bigger scale, right? Again, I can leverage that. Yes. Leverage my imagination to say it will be.
Yes.
So wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Syl. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will be here tomorrow, hopefully, at the same time. So please do join us. And so bye for now.
Thank you, Norma. And just a quick personal note, it was wonderful seeing you, Beena. Most wonderful.
Sorry?
It was wonderful to see you. It's nice.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's a great joy. It's a great joy. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Norma. I so love that you're here, Norma, and it's so brilliant. All right. Oh, I better go. Bye-bye. Beena slept already. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody. Okay. Let me